Hi there, my name is Diane and this is The New Old Nurse. Today's topic is a bit of a controversial one and one where people have argued with me and said, no way, you're completely wrong. The question is, can LPNs ever earn more than RNs? If you want to know the answer, stick around. Okay, disclaimers first. This probably varies based upon where you live. It may also vary depending on the time and history that we're in. I'm talking about right now, the year 2024. And I know what I'm saying to be true based on my own observations and knowledge from my own job prospects. So while this may not be the same for you 10 years ago, 10 years from now, in Alaska, well, it's true for where I live currently. Overall, RNs are going to earn more money than LPNs. That means their earning potential is higher. If an RN and an LPN are doing the exact same job, the RN is almost certainly going to be paid more for it. It's just a necessary fact because they have a higher level of education, a higher level of licensure. Typically, an LPN is reporting to an RN in some way, so that's how it's going to be. But does that necessarily mean an LPN cannot earn more than an RN? No. In fact, they do in many cases. When looking at any type of job, a lot of times the harder the job, the more you're going to get paid for it. Or the greater sacrifice you have to make for the job, the more they're going to have to pay people to get them to work. That's why night shift typically earns more money. I had somebody tell me, somebody who's not a nurse, it's just not fair that night shift earns more money because we do more work during the day. They should earn more money. And my answer was yes, but nobody wants to work at night, including you. Because if you just wanted more money and to do less work, you could work at night. But guess what? You don't. Why? Night shift is disruptive to your life. And the workplaces, the employers have to pay more to get people to agree to do it. That argument or that fact of life is a lot of why LPNs can in fact make more money than RNs. Now, where I live, typically the lowest paid LPN jobs that I see are working for doctors' offices. A lot of times you'll see the job listing where they will accept either an LPN or a medical assistant for the same position. It's usually something like where they're going to have you working the front desk sometimes, bringing patients into the examination room sometimes. It's sort of like the prep person and a point of contact person for the doctor's office. They don't pay as much because the job overall isn't going to be demanding the same level of work, say working an emergency room might be. That doesn't mean to say you're not busy in doctor's offices. I have plenty of friends who are run ragged at doctor's offices, but the type of work is just completely different than if you have a full roster of patients that you're taking care of all at once. The other benefit to working, for example, in a doctor's office is that they're typically not going to be open on holidays and they're not going to be open on weekends. So you know you have a pretty nice set schedule of Monday through Friday. You're not going to be asked to work Thanksgiving, Christmas, those sorts of things. So for that reason, the pay is often a little bit lower. The jobs that are in general seen as the less desirable ones because of your workload or schedule or work environment are the ones that often will pay an LPN more. So for example, in a lot of skilled nursing long-term care facilities, LPNs can make very good money. I'm going to give you some real world examples as to how the LPN pay in a skilled nursing facility can be much higher than an RN. Not exactly where I live, it would be about a 45-minute commute. I was offered a position in a very nice, actually, skilled nursing rehab / long-term care facility that was going to pay me just under $40 an hour. People think that LPNs could never make that much money. I was offered that amount of money. I didn't take the job because I didn't want to commute that far, but that was a real offer at a well-known employer that if I said the name, you probably would all know who they were if you have worked in long-term care. And that was with great benefits, the schedule I wanted, they were willing to pay me that. In that same job market, that same small city, there were RNs making only about $26 an hour at the local hospital. Yes, you heard that right. $26 an hour to work in the hospital, not even a 10-minute drive from this long-term care facility. And you might be thinking, Well, the long-term care facility was probably a hellhole and nobody wants to work there. No, that was not true. The long-term care facility was gorgeous. In fact, much nicer environment than the local hospital. It was just two different companies, two different corporations really, and one, for whatever reason, thought they could hire RNs, newer RNs, maybe not if you have 20 years experience, but newer RNs for $26 an hour, and this other corporation was willing to hire LPNs at about $40 an hour. That is a real life experience, okay, where I live. That is not something that I read about somewhere, that I heard about in a podcast. That is real. I don't know if it's just hospital pay in general, because that example I'm talking about is not right where I live. That's about a 45-minute drive from where I live. About a 15-minute drive from where I live is another small city. The hospital is the exact same. I was offered not even to work at the hospital itself, but a long-term care facility that the hospital owns and runs. And they were going to offer me for night shift, okay, so that had a differential, $27 an hour. Day shift at that same long-term care facility was only $23 an hour. A long-term care facility literally almost around the corner was paying $36 to work night shift, was paying $32 to work day shift. So the hospital was $23, the long-term care facility was $32. And this was not a bad, again, these are not bad long-term care facilities. A lot of what, in my experience, the long-term care facilities that are horrendous are not giving you excellent hourly wages. If they were, they might have a lot more staff who stuck around, and then the care in the facility might be better. But they are not paying that much. It means they're getting staff, not always the best ones. And a lot of the really terrible ones offer you some kind of crazy sign-on bonus. If you ever see a $20,000 sign-on bonus, which I have seen multiple times, probably not the best place to work. So again, going back to that, I'm not sure if it's the hospitals that are low pay or what is going on. But again, this is the difference isn't between different jobs. And you can be an LPN and still be making good money in lots of good places to work. Another example I will give is in home health. Now, is the hourly, I won't want to say hourly because the particular company I'm thinking of doesn't pay it hourly. They kind of assign each job task a certain number of points, and then you get paid based on those points. Do the RNs get more money per point? Yes, they do. That, like I said in the beginning of the video, that is the overall higher level of pay they're able to achieve. Can LPNs earn more money than the RNs? Yes, because a lot of the RNs are doing things like start of care visits, whereas LPNs are doing the more regular visits to check on the patients. And a lot of times in home health care, if you want to take on more visits that day, whether you do or don't, sometimes they give them to you. But if you want to, I've known so many home health nurses, LPNs, who are making well over $100,000. Why? Because they're willing to take on more visits. Now, does that mean they're working more to make more money? Well, yes, of course. But it's just the same thing as, well, RNs making more because they have a higher level potentially of responsibility. If you're doing more, you can be getting paid more. So LPNs who are willing to take on those extra visits make more money. So therefore, they could be making $100,000 a year doing home health visits, while the RN who is doing the start of care visits is making, let's say, $75,000 a year. That doesn't mean that the RN isn't getting paid well. It's just that the LPN is doing a lot more tasks and getting rewarded for it. So you don't necessarily have to be the RN to be making a good pay. Lots of people will say, well, RNs can earn more because they can be in management. True. Guess who else can be in management? LPNs. Now, maybe, again, there is still an RN over them at some point in the hierarchy, but that doesn't mean they're not earning good pay as managers. One direct example I will give you is a lot of assisted livings have what they call wellness directors. That means you are in charge essentially of the medication administration, the care plans, that sort of thing for the assisted living facility. Those wellness directors, wellness managers can be LPNs. Some places have RNs, but they don't have to have them. And they're making 60, 70, 80, 90, well over $100,000 a year. There was one wellness director I knew who had been the wellness director for one facility, was making over $100,000 a year. And this was a bit, again, a lot of these well-paying jobs are with kind of corporate level facilities. They're not with a small family-owned nursing home. They're not usually the ones paying the most money. She was working for one of these facilities and making over $100,000 and was being promoted to not really being a regional wellness director, but instead of only being over one facility, she was going to be over 3. And she was getting a huge raise for that. And she had been an LPN and had, worked, I don't even know if she had hospital experience. She was trying to convince me to become the wellness director where we were. And I said, I don't really know if I want to do that. And the reason I know how much she was making is because she was trying to convince me by telling me her fantastic income prospects. Can RNs do wellness director jobs? Yes. But again, the point of this video isn't to say that RNs can't earn this money. It's just that LPNs can earn the same money. In that position, in particular, a wellness director job, they probably would earn the same for the same exact job, regardless of their license, because the facility doesn't need to have the RN. They can have the LPN. So whether it's whichever license you have, you're making $75,000, you're making $100,000. They're paying the same to whoever holds the position. Then let's take travel nursing as an example, or agency nursing. I know plenty of LPNs who are getting, $1,000 a week practically for like one shift at a prison. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that, the staffing issues aren't there that are forcing these companies to pay that amount of money for that few shifts, but the money is out there if you want it. It's not that you have to go back to school and get your RN license in order to make a good living. It is out there. Again, going back to the long-term care facilities, there's so many open shifts. There's so many extra shifts that need to be covered, and some facilities will pay bonuses so that you not only get the money per hour, the overtime per hour, but then on top of that, you get a cash bonus in some of these places to cover another shift. I honestly just kind of don't think a lot of RNs or people who just don't know in general don't realize the jobs that LPNs can do and how difficult staffing is for a lot of these places, and therefore what they're having to pay the LPNs in order to cover their shifts. It's like people think LPNs are all making $15 an hour or something. That may have been true back at other times. I will say when I graduated nursing school a few hours, oh my God, a few years ago, remember, middle-aged nurse, a few years ago, pay wasn't quite as good, especially first coming out of nursing school. First coming out of nursing school, places are trying to get you for as little money as possible. Places that are telling you, oh yeah, you're gonna have trachs, you're gonna have this, you're gonna have that. Oh, we're only gonna pay you $18 an hour. It's like, you're kidding me, really? But it's not, these days, it's just not like that. And I don't think it's gonna go back because we only have more and more staffing issues as time goes along. So to sort of summarize, the main question, can LPNs earn as much or more than RNs? 100% yes. If your main goal or one of your main goals in going into nursing is to make as much money as possible and to be able to support your family in as great of a way as you possibly can, you can do that as an LPN. You don't have to go back to school or you don't have to achieve your RN in order to make a good living. Can you, over the course of a career, earn more as an RN? Yes. That would require taking on certain roles at certain facilities, types of facilities, in order to facilitate that. As an LPN, can you still make 6 figures doing similar jobs to what RNs are doing? Yes. In my experience, the place where that's least likely to happen is at hospitals. Hospitals in my area anyway, just seem to be lower pay for everybody. And they really just want to, I hate to use this word, but it's how I see it. They want to exploit the LPNs because they can't find enough RNs. So rather than trying to pay more to the RNs to get them in, they're just like, well, we can hire some LPNs and put them on the floor and pay them significantly less. So whereas the RNs might be getting $35 an hour, the LPNs are getting $23. That's the sort of situation I see in my local area. But you do not have to be an RN to make a good living. And if becoming an LPN is more achievable for you for any of the reasons I stated in my why I became an LPN or why I chose LPN video, you can still have a wonderful career as a licensed practical nurse. So I know that if anybody comments on this video, they're probably going to argue with me and say why this is not true. I'm sure you're all going to ask where I live so you can move here and get these good jobs. But I'm telling you, I do not live in a particularly well-paid state. I live in the Southeast. I don't live in a particularly well-paid region of the country. You know, we all, I'm sure, have heard about the California nurses earning $100 an hour. That's not the norm where I live. But these are real world recent experiences where I've been looking for jobs. My friends who are nurses have been telling me their experiences, and people I've worked for telling me their experiences. I've had LPNs who have been my unit manager. They've been making good money. Like it is out there. So don't think you cannot make a good living as an LPN. You definitely can. If you have any other questions, put them in the comments down below. If you have any comments, if you want to argue with me or share your experience about where you live, how terrible the LPN pay is, or how wonderful it is, or for RNs, etc., also share that down below, because let's help each other with information and tell us what states we shouldn't move to for LPN work. Until next time.